So what do they have in common? The Italian wine, French champagne, and Chinese media. I would like to hear from you about these two cases, Champagne Dots and Bottega Prosecco. As an anthropologist, what is your point of view on what went wrong in these two cases?
So what unites the three things you mentioned is a story, is the story that we told in our article. And it's a story that we hear again and again and again, because it's a story that companies never want to learn. It's the story whose morale is that the culture factor has a price, and if you consider it, you will be rewarded. And if you underestimate the culture factor, you're going to pay a price. That is the case of Champagne Dots. That's the case of Bottega Prosecco, and that was the case of countless other companies, such as D&G, for example. In their communication, notably their Twitter communication, they underestimated the culture factor, and that had a huge, huge impact on their ability to capitalize on their products. And to be honest, I don't really have an answer, because the businessmen and businesswomen who do this poor communication are not the kind of people I usually work with. As an anthropologist, I travel the world. I worked with Japanese, with Irish, with people in Europe, with Pentecostal Christians, many different kinds of people. And I understand them better than I understand businessmen. Because it's so clear from the literature and from the studies, from the science, that you need to take culture into consideration. So maybe actually I want to ask you, as someone with practice in international strategy and consultancy with big companies, why they don't learn the lesson?
Good question. Very good question. So first of all, it was a very nice experience to write the article together. I'm coming from the business world. I do international strategy consulting, and I work with companies from different countries. And yes, to answer to your question is very difficult. When we do international marketing, international market research, when we do international business development, we look at the market size, we look at growth, we will look at achievement, we look at competition, and we very often, and we can see in the case of these two companies, like we spoke in the article about Champagne Dots and Bottega Prosecco, is that we forget the human factor. We forget the culture. We forget the elephant in the room. Because in the end, let's not forget that we are just men and women from different countries trying to work together and build a relationship. So what we saw here in case of these two companies is that during this crisis, these businesses were under big pressure. We were losing, market size. We were losing turnover, future clients. We knew that the impact on our business is going to be very strong. What we as well forgot that each country is different, and the way we are going to communicate about them, it's going to have a big impact on our business. And for the Italian and French company we spoke about, this is exactly what happened. So what I have not seen very often for these companies is that to take into consideration the differences in our culture. And I was really glad to work with you, an anthropologist, on this article and to understand a bit deeper how can I help these companies to grow better, to grow in a healthier and a better way.
Merci. C'était un plaisir pour moi aussi. It was clearly a pleasure for me too, but the question is still open. I still struggle to understand, because in a rational action theory, when you have all the information, you should choose the best course of action. In this case, we have studies, we have consultants, we have
Yeah.
cultural intelligence. Why do these people who run these huge companies with a long and respectable history, they still switch their brain off when they hear the word culture? Why?
Yeah, so you saw these two companies, they are both very competent, very developed internationally. More than 50% sometimes of their turnover is done internationally, and still they struggle to adapt their way of speaking, their way of communication, and they even currently there is even more danger and complications due to the fact that with Twitter, so basically with social media, the message gets across the world in seconds and the impact is immediate. So why? It's because we still need to learn and we still need to think before we start communicating. There is
Yeah.
lots of training, need of training and need of learning how human can interact across the cultures.
Yeah, you need training, you need to develop some. The problem is also with the language, because when I am in a room with people who are entrepreneurs, who are, men who and women who have been trained to act fast in a fast
Yes.
world,
Yes.
I cannot even use some words and expressions such as culture. I know that if I use that word, they will not be listening. So it's a long process. It's a long, maybe, revolution that we are taking part in.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad to be sharing the pathway, the story of how we're going to change this with you.
Great. Looking forward to even more collaboration.
Absolutely. It will be my pleasure.
Thank you, Rodolfo.
Thank you, Tatiana. See you next time.
See you.